that you wanted to share coming here? Anything top of mind?
Honestly, no. I think I already hit on it with the thing. Is you guys are way ahead of where I was at this place. I feel like at a point in my career that I've been relatively successful, and so I think it's very important that you just stay passionate. If you feel that passion, there are so many different spaces in cyber, right? And so go find a new space, right? Try something different. The ability to move around from being an educator to a doer, back to an educator, like that revitalizes me. Being around youth like you that is really excited about it, and so just make those connections, move around, and I just look forward to seeing what you all get to do in the next decade.
Beautiful. Questions? Yes.
My name's Charlie. I'm from Penn State, York. I was wondering what scares you the most besides AI moving forward with the threat landscape?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. I mean, what scares me the most on a daily basis is that cyber is very different, particularly in what I do from conventional warfare, and the idea that once you put something out there, it's very hard to control what happens to that. We try our best and whatnot, and so data, as you mentioned, really the underlying part of AI is very worrisome in the sense of I'm not just worried about the adversary. I'm worried about all of the sensors and all of the part and what they are doing. I'm part of that pattern of life, right? Am I standing out because this is not the normal way a connection should go between these devices? But I also always worry about the idea that there are things that you just can never get back, right, once they're out there. And you've seen that happen in various spaces where people design something, a security research for a point, and then it ends up getting used for some malicious reason to an extent. And so that worries me a lot as well.
Thank you.
I think we had from UMBC. Question?
I'm Will from UMBC. What's your daily routine like? Is it a lot of hands-on keyboard? Is it a lot of meetings or?
Yeah, and so I'm very fortunate. I'm a relatively senior, but I do spend the 40% of my time probably easily direct on keyboard. And so kind of the way it is you could think of it as kind of like the pilot analogy. I normally have a person with me who is an analyst who kind of builds the flight plan, and so I do a little research into that flight plan to make sure what I'm doing, and they'll be there to help me, but I'm the person who then drives the plane to some extent. I do a lot of mentoring and training, and so I'll probably do 2 to 3 8-hour missions a week where I'm at. The other time is just prepping for those missions, or maybe it's a light week. It's working with the junior people, giving them hands-on keyboard and observing them to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So just a lot of mentoring and quite honestly a lot of time on keyboard.
Yes.
Hi, Daniel with Towson University. This is about asking you the first question that I asked originally, but your question, when you're doing anything in cyber operations, how often do you find yourself attacking the same target as a kid playing war games in his bedroom?
Yeah, I don't think that really happens very often. So yeah, sorry. Right.
Yes.
I mean, what we do, and it's very clear, right, is that there are very specific adversaries, right, in places that we are going against, and it's not something. A lot of that is just commercial or Hollywoodized, right? So it's not really where we end up on a daily basis.
We're going to go to the back first and then to the right.
So can you describe a little bit about what you do for offensive cybersecurity? So I'm thinking like you're writing exploits and stuff.
Yeah, and so there's a whole lot of it, right? And so I mean, there's many different career fields, right? I'm actually a developer as well, and so they're the ones who build things like, take your normal POC, right? Something that gets dropped recently, and we've had several good privilege escalation ones, in the past couple months or whatnot, and then just wraps that a little bit to make it more successful or more reliable, right? To build in whatever framework. I mean, I'm sure you guys are familiar with frameworks from Cobalt Strike to Metasploit to PowerShell Empire. I mean, it's all the same general concept, right? Then there's a person who researches the best way to move around and what exploits to use. That's generally what our analysts do, and they're more understanding of. And then you're actually the one who then utilizes the tool, right, to move around and troubleshoots when it goes wrong, which it inevitably does. In charge of once you're in a device or whatever, making sure that device is clear, right? So I will say from an offensive perspective, right, you get to move around a lot, but there's such a big binning. You say blue team and red team, right? I would say that I do, even as a primary red teamer, I do 75% blue team, right? The idea of looking at my space, seeing who else has been there, right? Making sure that there's no, antivirus or something like that might be tripping me up, or someone else isn't even watching what I'm doing. I mean, those are, there's no malware there doing a thing. Those are things that you would consider, I think, traditionally blue team, but that's a big part of my job as well.
Room for one, maybe two. Yes.
What does your success rate look like, and have you ever discovered any
I mean, so again, I am using things there have certainly been spaces, right, and things, but I'm not a developer, right, and so there's all that's not what I do now, and so but there are people out there that craft those things, right, and there's a whole process when that's developed, where adjudication of the risk, right, letting people. There's a lot of public disclosure that happens, right? When that is, even when they define 0 days, right? Is it to let those companies know so they can fix them to protect people as well? But I'm primarily past that point where it has been mostly from has been turned into a tool already, and then just the utilizer of that.
One more question. Any takers? Going once. All right.
So,
Yes.
do you find the skill set for offensive versus defensive is different, or do you find people mostly enter the offensive side after spending time on the defensive side, or red, blue, whatever terminology you like?
Yeah, and so I think, right, we see that here today, right? That the overlap between offensive and defensive techniques is, as I said, what it's been is probably 80%. There's very maybe understanding the frameworks or whatever is a solely red thing, and there's some the ability to write queries in Splunk or whatever, right, and your search engine maybe. But the rest of it, the core concepts, understanding the networking, and all of that is the same. What's really cool and what is awesome about is that just the red team is just more interesting, and people get you have things like capture the flag, right? And you have this idea that I'm breaking thing, and so it just gives more of that external motivation to people to learn those same techniques, right? And you can fool them into doing it, whereas I think a lot of times the blue side exercises are just not as sexy, right? And so you're learning the exact same skills. It doesn't matter if you say you're a blue teamer or a red teamer, you're just a cybersecurity professional, and feel free, when you and I really feel that if you come from one mindset and switch to the other, you're gonna be a real expert at the other side, because you know how the one side thinks, right? You kind of have thought about that, and that a big part of it is also the mindset, right? So there's really not that big of a difference in my opinion.
Everybody, Major Michael Kranch, thank you very much.